Coming up today on Uncommon Sense, I have the pleasure of talking to Fabiola Garza, an author, illustrator, and a lover of Chesterton. Stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to Uncommon Sense, the official podcast of the Society of Gilbert Keith Chesterton. I am Gretelyn Darkey, your host, and I am so happy to be joined today by Fabiola Garza. How are you today, Fabiola?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, sure. It's a pleasure. And for those of our guests who haven't heard of you, would you mind just letting us know a little more about yourself?
Of course. I am an author-illustrator based in Orlando, Florida, and I work for the Walt Disney Company, primarily for Disney Creative Group, and we're in charge of creating all the art for the merchandise that goes out into the world. So we create drawings of everybody's most beloved characters, and then we hand that over either to our production in-house or people outside, Walmart, Target, anybody who uses Disney illustrations. And yeah, so it's a lot of fun. And then on my own time, I do my own work. So most recently, I finished a book called Princesses of Heaven, The Flowers, and it is published by Word on Fire.
Beautiful. And it is a gorgeous book. Hopefully we can pop it up on screen here in post-production. But yeah, it's a beautiful book, as you would expect from an author illustrator of female saints. So if you have a young lady in your life, this is a lovely gift for them. But, also, of course, since you're on this show, you like Chesterton. So tell us a little bit about you and Chesterton and how you found him and your journey with him.
I do. I love Chesterton, and I first came upon his work in college. So I went to Rhode Island School of Design, which is a very, very liberal art school. And I was probably one of the only practicing Catholics at the school. So I had a lot of very interesting conversations with people. And eventually I was introduced to apologetics, Catholic apologetics, and it's a pretty normal thing to be recommended orthodoxy by G.K. Chesterton. And that was my first book with him, and I thought it was so wonderful. I think one of the things I loved most about him is that he was so funny and light and deep at the same time. And he was clearly delighted with himself. He was like, I'm so funny. I'm so clever. But it was just a joy to read him. And it's such a different style than anybody else I've written. I think that's the other thing. He's so unique in the way he phrases things that I loved it so much. And that was my first my first introduction to him. And later on, one of the things I loved most about him is his work on fairy tales and the way he talks about fairy tales and fairyland. And that was just very affirming as a person who loves fairy tales. And sometimes, I think as Catholics, sometimes or just as Christians and believers, we think that we only have to work and love on things that are quote unquote Catholic, like, plastered on it, this is a Catholic book or something. And it's just like, but I love fairy tales. Is that bad? I love all these other things. Would that not honor God enough? If it wasn't something like specifically Catholic, if somebody came upon it. So I don't know, he just touches on everything. His essays are amazing. I don't know. He's so good. I read some of his Father Brown stories.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I also feel like the community that he brings together is so much fun. So I don't know. There's just a lot going on in regards to how I met him and how he's become part of my life. And, I've met met so many other friends who love him too.
I love that. And I was really into fairy tales as a child and still kind of am. But
Hmm.
yeah, definitely felt that tension of like, is this okay as a Catholic, as a Christian to be into these, there's magic, there's wicked witches, there's all these things that seem like maybe we should run away, but Chesterton has a wonderful way of helping you see them in perspective and understand how they can be compatible with the faith. I love that. That's great. Um, so tell me about like how Chesterton is kind of informed your art, if at all.
I think when it comes to Chesterton, I think it's the whimsy, the way he speaks about whimsy is something that is I think really crucial for me. The way he talks about like childlike wonder and remaining a child in your heart, and how sometimes we forget that kind of joy and imagination as we grow. I love how he talks about um how um like a child would just be excited to see the sunrise because it's the first time he's seeing it, and the first
Mm,
time you see anything is amazing. And um and how we have to um r- learn to see things again for the first time in order to really see the wonder behind them. And I
mm,
think it's just um a really big part of doing art that is supposed to bring about wonder.
mm,
So it's the sort of same feeling that you get when you read his books is kind of what I want people to have
mm,
when they see my art. Um,
mm.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think that's great. And that's definitely so needed. I think we're just inundated with stuff, There's so many images and things coming at us these days, and it's nice to be able to want to cut through that and say, look, just really look at this and see it and enjoy it in a way that maybe you wouldn't if it was just kind of scrolling past you on a screen. I love that. That's great.
Hmm.
So tell us more about Princesses of Heaven. How did this come about? How did you decide to do this?
So I was talking to my editor Haley recently, and we've just been so excited about how well it's been received. And I was just looking back on, it's been so long since the idea first came about. I think it was because I was in a place in my life where um, I I was just thinking about what would be fun to do next,
Mm,
and um, Princesses of Heaven sort of brings together all the things that I love. That sort of whimsy, my faith, princesses,
mhm,
a really big need, I think, to like heal one's inner child, because
mm,
I also started thinking about what did I need when I was a little girl? What lessons did I need that I wasn't given that would have
mm,
saved me so much heartache through my adult life? And at the beginning, I thought, well, maybe we could just do actual royal saints,
mm,
like Saint Elizabeth of Hungary and all these things. But then while I was trying to put them together, I realized that um, they still felt too far removed from a little girl.
sure.
And I was like, this is still a great idea. I think I can do that later. But first, I want a little girl to be able to connect with a saint as an ordinary girl, just like
Mm,
her, and to be able to um, see her first and foremost as a daughter of God and herself as a daughter of God, um, and then make the leap to knowing that your worth is completely based on you being a daughter of God, and that it's not something that you need to work at, something that you need to prove. It doesn't matter what you look like. If you're the most popular, it just doesn't matter. You're worthy and you're a
mm,
princess of God. And yes, you're meant to respond to that love, but you never have to worry about your own worth. And so you don't have to waste time and energy trying to obtain that worth.
mm,
So trying to communicate that for a little girl is really hard, you know? Because,
Yeah.
but I wanted it to be like a beginning when they learn something like that, but also on the basis of, the most beautiful kind of princess to be is
Mm.
a princess of heaven. So it's not really meant to replace fairy tales or anything like that. It's, as in like fairy tales bad, they don't get it right. It's more like looking deeper at our human yearning about happily ever after,
Mm.
like what is happily ever after and what really is forever. And
Mm.
heaven is really the only thing that is forever. So it's kind of sort of elevating the fairy tale and trying to look deeper at the possible symbolism within a fairy tale and bringing it, kind of hitting somebody over the head and it's like, it's heaven, but because most people don't make that leap of like your innermost yearning of being saved, of all these like tropes.
Yeah.
So, if you just tell a child right at the beginning, that this is what it is, so you can frame all other fairy tales, rightly ordered
Mm.
towards God. So yeah, that's kind of um,
Oh, I
what
love
I was
that.
thinking.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And there is such a message out there of like very finite goals, especially for women, right? Be beautiful, find the right guy, like important things, not necessarily unimportant things, but not the end goal, right? So it's so cool
Hmm.
to have this beautifully illustrated, very appealing, lovely book for young girls that's saying yes, and and
Yes,
heaven.
exactly.
Let's get there. Yeah, I love that. Ah, that's so cool. So people can get that from Word on Fire. Is that the best place to get it right now?
Yes, that is the best place to get it. Yes, it's back in stock, so you can find it on their website. Just click books, and then you'll get there. It should be one of the first books that you get to.
Wonderful. And we can also link it in the description. Um, so also, you're going to be talking about this book and your experience at the Chesterton Conference in just a little while here, just a few more weeks and days.
I know, I can't believe it. It's so soon.
Yes, yes, it is. Are
It's
you
gonna be.
excited?
I'm very excited. I'm so excited. I have I am always nervous about giving talks, but it's always so much easier to give a talk when it's something that you're passionate about and not
Mm.
like a topic where they're like, we need you to talk about this topic. And you're not necessarily like, okay, I've never really thought about that. Okay.
Right.
So this is just something I'm very passionate about. And I love talking. I feel like I can talk people's ears off about everything that went into it, all the research,
Mm.
all the little like Easter eggs in the book, those kinds
Mm.
of things. It's very fun.
I can't wait. It's going to be great. I have two daughters. They're a little young for your book, but it's never too early, right?
How old
Um,
are they?
so I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and yeah,
Babies.
yeah, it's great. It's great. But little girls are so amazing. Little boys too, obviously, but there's something very special about little girls, and it just makes my heart sing that there's people like you out there that are doing this for them. Um, yeah, but so is this your first Chesterton conference that's coming up that you're going to speak at here?
It is. Wait, yes. Actually, no, I've been to a Chesterton conference before, but it's my first time speaking.
Okay.
I went to the one in Orlando quite a few years
Okay.
ago, because it was local, and I was like, "Yay, it's here!"
Yeah.
And that was really great time.
Mm. It's quite an experience. It's very special. Well, if you wouldn't mind for our guests who maybe are even still on the fence, like why should you come to a Chesterton conference? What is the best reason you can think of?
I think primarily it's the people.
Mm.
I think it's the people that come together. I think it's the people you meet and the community that you meet because you're able to not only discuss really interesting ideas,
Hmm.
but there are people who I think have a lot of the times a very well integrated faith, you know? And if you are a person who loves humor and fun, but also loves deep thinking. I think it's just the best place to be. Um, And whether you know a lot about Chesterton or not, I think there's something for everyone when it comes to his writings. He wrote about so many things that even if you don't like a particular work, there will be something you like. There will be
Mm-hmm.
something that you enjoy. So I really do recommend it. It's so much fun, and I think sometimes because it's true. You know, whenever you decide to go to these things, you're like, but I have so many other things on my plate. I have to pay for so many other things. I have to say, like, I do not regret one bit, like being like, oh, I just didn't buy that piece of furniture to be able to go. Like the memories that you make with people and those
Yeah.
things, they last so much longer. And we need those moments, I think, of quote unquote adventure to get off, like out of our own routine, to
Mm-hmm.
get sort of replenished and see the world and reframe the world in a different way. And so I think, I don't know, I just always come back happier from those things.
Oh, yeah, me too. I think I was talking to somebody else who's speaking. I don't remember who, but it came up that it's kind of like a little Rivendell place. You know, it's like this beautiful stop on the way that is adventurous, but it's also sort of restful, and you feel safe, and it's all friends, and it's even if you don't know people, they're there to be your friends, and it's just this wonderful oasis in the middle of our year that I
Yes.
really look forward to. Yeah. Cool. Well, if you wouldn't mind, if it's not too much like spoiling your talk, could you tell us some of the things that you're specifically looking forward to talking about?
Um, Let me think because I can talk about it all the time. Let's see. I love talking about and I'll talk a little bit about how wonderful it was to research. I love historical research and find out that we have so many primary sources on a lot of the people that I was researching.
Mm,
And one of the most, I think, incredible things is that we have the entire court proceedings of Joan,
mm,
transcribed from 15th century.
mhm,
And it's not like they were there, they just wrote down everything that was being said, and it's verbatim. It's
mm.
nuts because a lot of times we do have a hard time finding primary sources of those times. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes it's word of mouth, sometimes it's somebody wrote about it. I was like, no, literally, that's what they had to do during the court proceeding.
Mm.
And we have the entirety of those things. So we have
Wow.
all of her thoughts, all of her, like, all, like, and you could also see the questions that they're asking her and how they're trying to trap her. And you're just
Mm,
like, you're looking at it as if it was going on.
mm,
And you also know, like, there's a moment where she doesn't know this, but they know this, that if she calls upon the Pope to to help or to look at things, technically it's over, and now the entire issue is going to go to Rome, and that would have saved
mm.
her. She does not know
Oh,
that. They kept her
oh,
from that. So she kind of sort of says something like, "Well, if I'll tell the Pope." Like, I'll tell the Pope, like, she's so smart and so innocent at the same time. And it just knowing that if she knew this, she could have,
mm,
you know,
oh,
it's just it's so heartbreaking. It's so
yeah.
heartbreaking if she had appealed to him, and it's so hard. But at the same time, you can't believe that this is a 19-year-old giving like very deep theological statements,
Mm,
and also not knowing that they're very deep because she says them so simply.
mm.
So it's one of those things that are just wonderful. And that's just one of the like many awesome things.
Yeah. So just to delve into
Yeah.
that a little bit deeper. So I haven't gotten the book yet. I think I want to get it signed. um, but so how did you deal with Joan of Arc in a kid's book? You know, it's kind of a
I
dark
Everybody always
subject.
asks that, and that's yeah. You get both things where they're like, "I want more of this story," and I'm like, it's for 3-year-olds. It's for
Yeah.
it's for bedtime. That's the
Yeah.
other thing because I think as Catholics we grew up with the dark stories all the time. I mean, we have
Mhm.
Christ on a cross everywhere, and it's
Yes.
incredibly bloody and graphic. But we are to a certain extent desensitized because we're just used to it.
Hmm.
And I read a lot of the saint stories growing up.
Hmm.
including Joan, but you see the sensitivity of like a 3-year-old is a little bit different than like a 7-year-old. Like it's a
Hmm.
very big gamut, and how it would be presented. Plus, these are girls, young girls, so they
Right.
might put themselves in their own head being like, that could be me, and I'm
Yeah.
only 3, like these stories are really framed as like mini stories, as they're
Mm.
more to introduce the child to the charism and the personality of the
Mm.
saint, rather than it being like a whole biography. It's
Okay.
really yes, so it's showing just a little story, like a little arc of a really crucial moment
Mm.
in the time of the saint's life. So it's very short. It's only 10 pages. It takes not a lot of time to read. But with Joan, it starts with her calling um, by the saints to lead the army in France, and it ends with a victory, or what is, I think, considered one of her greatest victories in battle. And so it's little, it's victorious, and you don't go on to
Not yet.
the
Maybe
very
when they're
sort of
older.
the gruesome, yeah, gruesome details. It's not that I will completely shy away from everything, because a lot of saints, their parents died when they were young, so we may
Hmm.
mention those things, like things that happened off screen a little bit,
Yeah.
but not on that, because it's a hard balance, because some
Yeah.
people will be mad that they're like, why didn't you include it? I'm just like, we have to make choices, and hopefully they
Yes.
were the right choices.
And there is,
And I think so.
yeah, I think there is some confusion. I'm thinking of my own 3-year-old, and the other day she said she had to hold my hand crossing the street because if not, she could die. And then there's a pause, and she goes, "On the cross," and I was like, "No, not really." But that is it's just a phrase that she's heard.
That's so
It's
sweet.
very sweet, but like
You're
so
like, no, that's not how it
no,
goes, honey.
yeah, no, no, but yeah, but it was there's this definitely I get that there's this sort of over sympathy, I guess, with characters sometimes that little girls probably have that, yeah, you need to be a little bit careful, but that's great. Um,
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I get suggestions all the times for new saints for other books. They're like, this one, and I'm like, that's very inappropriate. Like I'm trying, I'm like the entire story, like the entire, like, because sometimes saints have different, because I look at it as kind of a storyteller, like little
yes,
arcs that I can do.
yes,
And sometimes when the entire arc is something incredibly tragic or just not appropriate,
yeah.
where I would literally have to just be like, he wanted to attack her.
It's like Saint
Like,
Margaret, maybe not.
yeah, and Saint Dimna, and I was like,
Yeah,
so unless they have some other thing that I can, like,
mm,
another little story somewhere or something else that would be still really showcasing their virtue or something, it's just not the best. Especially a
yeah,
lot of early martyrs, where I'm just like, that's all we have.
yeah.
Literally their martyrdom, and
Yes.
they're very beloved, they're very wonderful, but I'm like, I think sometimes, yeah, for those kinds of things. But I don't know, sometimes I remember a lot of the little, did you have those old comics when you were
Uh,
young or something? I had a lot of the little,
Little
like, comic
books.
starts, like
Okay.
that, like comics, and I feel like they went into detail.
Yeah. When kids
And
can take a lot more
I know,
than
I think
people
it's
think they
because it
can.
goes over their head, and because it's
Yeah.
not something they've experienced in any way. It just kind of like, either that doesn't register that much.
Yeah.
But I think it's just, we just had to make a decision about what the general sort of feeling would be.
Yeah.
And I think it worked. I think it worked. It's not like we completely shied away from them having hardships, or things that were rough, but we did have to be sort of delicate in how we approach things. Things like with Bakita, with slavery and things like
Yes.
that. So,
So who
um,
else who
uh,
else in the book? I know it's Saint Therese. Now I know it's Saint Joan. Who else?
yes. We have Saint Bakita,
Okay.
Saint Kateri Tekakwitha.
Mm.
We have Saint Lucy Yi Shonmei, who's
Mm.
Chinese, and Saint Narcissa, who's from
Mm.
Ecuador.
Cool.
And I tried to find a really good mix.
Yeah.
So some are martyrs, some died a natural death, some are religious, some are not. that kind of thing. Really did want a good mix of personalities and everything.
No, I love
So
it. That's
yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, that's really great. And yeah, I'm sure there's something for everybody in that mix. That's good. And there's some that
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
So
think that was the point. That like I
yeah.
think it's just I wanted on some level for you to be able to relate. And that I also thought that was fun because I also wanted to showcase the universality of the church, not only
Mm.
because they were from everywhere, but because of the universality of personalities, of
Yeah.
talents, of everything that I don't know if you feel this. So at least I did when I was in college and coming out. I thought the like right way to be a good Catholic or a good faithful Catholic was you have to be extroverted. Um, you have to be able to have the energy to help at the middle school like
Oh,
retreats
yeah.
for a weekend.
Yeah.
And you have to dress a certain way. You have to your Instagram has to look. I don't know why, but those things kind of start getting to you of just like, oh,
Hmm.
I have to morph or there's something wrong with me. When
Right.
it's nothing about yourself that's not necessarily simple. It's more of like my personality,
Right.
things I enjoy, the way I talk. Sometimes you think like, "Oh, this is the way Christians talk." I have to formulate and use yes, or even pray, like sometimes
Yes.
like when people would like pray aloud, they would just be like, "Oh, and you have to say it." Like I had a lot of evangelical friends and I would just even notice from the outside I was like, everybody always says the same things. Like, you know what I mean? Because
Yes.
whereas we broaden the idea of what holiness is and that
Mm.
God is here to perfect you the way you are, not change you, but perfect your nature. And so
Mm.
I don't know. I think things that maybe they go completely over the heads, but things that I had a hard time learning too.
No, I love that.
So
I
I thought
think
it would be, yeah, so I thought it would be useful to just be like, look, all of these different personalities, talents,
mm.
and things that they did, like they are all wonderful and they're all friends. I picture them at the end in the book, like all in heaven together,
Oh,
like friends, like
yeah.
no longer divided by space and time.
Mm.
And I don't know, just trying to formulate that your uniqueness is good
Hmm.
and God will use it and he will show you. Um, you know,
Oh, I love that. I love
yeah.
that. I heard a priest say one time that God loves variety. And if you don't believe me,
Yes.
just see how many kinds of bugs there are out there.
See, that is the funniest.
It's
That's somebody who
true,
has a
though.
really good sense of humor, though. But I
Yeah.
love that because usually, like, look at the variety of the saints. They're like
Right. Nope.
bugs.
There's like a gazillion bugs and we always keep finding new ones. But yeah, but there's so many different, you're right though. There's so many different personality types. Even Chesterton is a very distinct personality, right? And he is
Yes.
not like, I don't know, St. Thomas Aquinas or St. Francis, like different, right? So it's this beautiful, I love that. It's a beautiful introduction to people that your personality is, obviously if you have sins, you should work on those. But if your
Yes.
personality, just as God gave it to you, is a good thing, and it is beautiful to him, and he made it that way on purpose, and it's that way for a reason, and it will help you in your vocation, in your life, ultimately to get to heaven. That's great. That's beautiful. Well, we are coming to the end of our time, and this has been a lot of fun. Is there anything else you would love to say about the book, about Chesterton, the conference, anything at all?
I'm trying to think because again, I could go on if we started on something else. I think I was trying to think. Okay, this is super random, and I'm just gonna go with it because it's the first thing I thought. So for the Chesterton conference last time, this is just a little story from last time,
Please.
because you're going to a Chesterton conference, and so you're like, okay, I know I'm a girl, but I feel like I need to buy a pipe because it just feels like part of the ceremony of
Mhm.
becoming a Chestertonian is you just buy a pipe.
Mhm.
So I went online and I was like, okay, I want a pipe with flowers on it because I'm such a girly
Yes.
girl. So I brought it. I brought it to the conference, and afterwards, in the afterglow of things, people were like bringing out their pipes and things. I discovered really quickly that it was not for me. I was like, no. No, thank you.
Yuck.
No, thank you. No, thank you. But it was kind of a really hilarious experience just having people being like, "Okay, this is how you do it." And I
Yeah.
was just like,
Okay.
and I was like, first and last time, but I still haven't, and it's a really cute little memento. But it's just a good time. Everybody's really fun. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really looking forward to going and meeting new people because it's been a while, so I assume it'll be new faces.
Mm.
Um,
And it is
and
it is the kind of place where nobody's above like teaching a young girl how to stuff a pipe. Like that's a beautiful
no,
thing.
no, no, I think they were really excited about that too. They were like, "Oh,
Yeah.
she's into it." And I was like, and then at the end it'll be like, "Nah, I'm good."
I'm okay. Oh,
I'm
that is
good, but it
great.
was it was it was a gr- it's just fun, and I think it's just such a joyful time. And it is. I also think, okay, it's a very different experience than going to any other conference. Has
Yes.
a very specific aura, like
Yes.
feeling to it. It's very much you can feel like the spirit of Chesterton is alive here. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
so. And that's also why I love it because it feels different in a
Yes.
really great way than other conferences. So it feels unique to itself.
Yes.
It feels very unique.
Oh, I totally agree. Other conferences are great, not knocking it like Catholic
No,
Answers
no, 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 no.
Conference
It's
or
just
any of
that
those.
it is unique. You
Yes.
just feel like it's its own thing. It's a different experience. So
Mm-hmm.
it's if
It's not just any old
it's different.
conference.
Yes, not the sale conference.
Come
It's a
on now.
Chesterton conference.
Exactly. And
Yeah, so
he is
it's a good.
there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a wonderful time. So I'm very excited, and I'm also very excited to hear the other talks. I
Mm.
remember I was looking at the itinerary, and there was one about ghosts. I
Mm.
forget, but
That
I
might
was
be
like,
Chris
I'm there.
Checks. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I was just like, that sounds like so much fun. So I'm also really excited to hear everybody else's talks.
Yeah, it's fun because being Chesterton people, there's always like a slight twist in all the talks. Like when we were interviewing Chris Check, and we are like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, St. Gregor the Great." I'm like, "Okay, I'm falling asleep." And he's like, "And his ghost stories." I was like, "What? What?"
Yeah, that sounds
Tell me
amazing.
more. Tell me more. Yeah.
See,
So
that's the kind of thing where you're just like, it's so fun. Yeah.
yes, yeah, and it's all like that. Yeah. Come on down. Tune in digitally, whatever you have to do. Go to chesterton.org/conference today and join us. We'd love to have you. Well, thank you so much, Fabiola. This has been super fun, and I am really looking forward to meeting you in person.
Oh,
It's
this has
just,
been great. Thank you so much for having me. It was so good to meet you. I can't wait to meet you in real life.
yeah, it will be really fun. And thank you all so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button and let that algorithm know that this podcast needs to get to more and more people because, as we know, Chesterton is always better with friends. Thank you, and God bless.